So as you know, when you come to Polar Online, you would have first been greeted by a lovely new one source page, and then you head over to the booking tool to take you over onto Polar Online. So as you may know, Polar Online is also a multi-brand function, so across Princess Cruises, Cunard and P&O. So just want to make sure, first of all, that you're selecting Princess Cruises as your cruise line. As we're going to be searching new availability searches today, what we'll do is start on the create a booking function. And then you'll be greeted by your cruise search. So for ease of the search, what you want to ideally do is you would have taken the guest membership number to begin with. So I'm just going to use this test number here. The importance of using a guest member number is just because the guest would pull through any previous loyalty. It also makes your life easier because it will already have all of their details and past guest membership attached to that. If the guest does also hold any future cruise deposits, any credits, any loyalty benefits such for like military, etc., that will automatically pull those through there as well. So when my laptop wants to search, there we go. So that will bring up then your guest and any guest that potentially may be linked to them at the same address. As you would have noticed from the first page, you would have also seen that the only other option on Polar Online that it lets you search with is a phone number. So it is just a member number and phone number. If your guest hasn't cruised before and you've had that conversation that they are new to Princess, you can just go into the new passenger tool here, and then it'll allow you to enter in some of their details to begin your search for them. So I've selected my guest 1 and 2, and then we'll just search by member number. So as you can see here, that's then populated their details into here for you. It generally will show, here it's showing first just because it's a test member number, but it generally would then show them their loyalty status there as well. Okay, so for the purpose of this, of course, we're going to do our home city airport for flights as Dublin. I will just point out at the beginning of this, because my login is a UK login, it will only show actually UK pricing in pounds, even if I am doing a Dublin search, but for yourselves, it would obviously pull through in euro. So when you're wanting flights included, you would always need to do your yes to air. Now, as you've got here a few options with how you begin your search. So I will always use the voyage number if I do have that. So we're going to go for a Sun Princess, voyage of U532. However, you can go and search by date, stateroom type, ship, and so on. If you have the voyage number to hand, obviously, you can just go there. You don't necessarily have to make your stateroom type selection there either, because you can do that at a later stage. And then what I would do is go ahead and search by category list. You may find that some people do by date and zone or by price, but personally for me, I just find the category list the easiest way to view. So then it will bring me up any voyages that are linked to that sailing. So as you can see here, we've got U532, which is a voyage that I've searched for, but then you do have the logistical voyages either side for the 14 night, the 21 night, and then the voyage just beforehand. So just to make sure that I've selected the voyage that my guest is asking for, I would do view here. And then it will show me an overview here of the itinerary, just to make sure that the guest is happy. And then we can then go back once we've confirmed that they're happy and save and continue through. And so this is what I mean by here for the category list. So it brings you up actually all the different grades of cabins and categories. One really good feature about Polar Online, that actually we're one of the only brands that has this, is an interactive deck plan tool. So if you would just click on this at the top here, it's a really good way to kind of showcase that and bring it to life for your guests that maybe haven't cruised before, and you just really want to kind of pull through the cabins and bring the ship to life as to exactly what they're after. So as you can see here, it brings up the full view of the ship. But for example, if I were to go into a deck with cabins on, so let's go to deck 14, where I know that there's staterooms. And as you can see here, so look, if the guests wanted one of the suite cabins at the front, it would then actually populate and bring to life exactly one of the cabins here. So actually it's a deluxe balcony. It gives you the category information, special notes, for example, sofa bed by entrance. If there was a blocked balcony or an obstructed view, that's where it's stated there for you as well. It will also show you that back on Polar Online. And then you get an overview, kind of a bird's eye view of the cabin itself. they generally are kind of scaled to how they actually look as well. But also just to bring that whole ship experience to life as well, you can then go on to the itinerary experience, the shore excursions, etc. as well, just to really showcase that itinerary to your guests. But then coming back onto Polar Online, so as you can see here, zooming in, we've got the whole list of the categories and the cabins. So as you can see here on the status column, there are lots of different letters and numbers. C would mean that that category is closed. It would mean it's sold out. There's no more cabins available. In W, that would be cabins on a wait list. So your guests can book onto a wait list. It just means that their booking won't actually be confirmed on the sailing. Any cabins that have the number 9, what that means is that there's actually probably more than 10 cabins available in that grade. Any that kind of have 1, 3, that means that actually probably is to the scale of that number. And then, of course, G is for our guarantee cabins. So available to book, it just means that your guests can't actually select their cabin number at the time. We would then allocate it for them at any later stage. So just looking in here to the fare comparison, so this is where our packages would be selected. So as you can see here, we have the Sanctuary Collection, Standard Fare, Princess Premier and Princess Plus. So for the purpose of this, let's go for Princess Plus, as we know that that is really, really good value. Our guests can book that for €58 per person per day. So this would then just give an overview here of exactly what is included in the Princess Plus package. So you can just run through that with your guests and make sure they're absolutely happy to add that to the booking, which they definitely should be, because it will be saving them a lot of money. And then we can save and continue through. That will then automatically pull the package for the price. This fare amount here isn't actually where you want to look at quoting the cost of the cruise. So say, for instance, let's go for a DE balcony. So on Sun Princess, all of the balconies are actually a deluxe grade or above. So you can actually see here in the category descriptions, it does give you a full overview exactly of the cabin. So obviously you can go on to the next page here, but for example, a DA grade deluxe balcony, and it explains the decks that they're on. It shows you kind of the sofa bed setup or rollaway setup, if there's any uppers in the cabin as well. So really good bit of information there. So let's go, did I do DE? Let's go back to a DE grade, save and continue through. So of course we've clicked yes to air, so that's already pulled through at the top there, but it's pulled through our fare here. So you've got a full breakdown. We've got our transfers and packages, which will automatically pull through. So that will be the airport transfers. And then the package cost of the Princess Plus that we selected has automatically pulled through in this price as well. Okay, and then what we want to do is actually go on to plain sailing. So we're now going to look at pulling actually through the flight. So you just go to this button here, there's plain sailing, or there is one at the bottom. And then that will open up plain sailing for you in a new tab. It's actually a really, really good system when you kind of get to know the ins and outs of plain sailing. But ideally for this voyage here, what we want to do is go ahead and select the Aer Lingus allocations. Of course, that is going to be the most easy option for your guests. Really, really ideal. So we'd have the cost of the price of the flight here, and then you would just go able to select that. And then we've got our return from Barcelona back into Dublin, and we would also select that there. So it'll give you an overview of the price. Again, of course, that is in pounds, so that would appear differently for costs for yourselves in euros. It does give you the flight disclaimers just to run through with the guests for anything that is relevant for them on there. You would just need to then read and understand the conditions. Flights have been saved, so I can then head back to Polar Online. So then what I can just do then is I generally go back. Hopefully this will then save my flight selection on there, which it usually does. There we go, we've got the flight added into the air breakdown here. So as you can see in the total, you just then scroll down and that would give you here your gross fare total. It's a really, really simple way to pull it through, especially when your guests choosing the Aer Lingus allocations as well. They're really good. So we do also have some voyages still for the rest of the season that do have availability, this of course being one, and then also a voyage in September as well that does also have a good amount of seats left available to book. One really good feature as well on Polar Online here is the click to chat. So this takes you to our live chat Ask Isaac. Now, at any point throughout your booking process, or at any time really that you do need to reach out to our contact centre, sometimes this might even be an easier way just than calling through, especially if you do have your customer in front of you. You'll just be able to fill in your name and your email here, and that will start the chat. And then we have a team that are dedicated to live chat, so they would pick that up at the earliest opportunity, and they generally get back to you within that minute or so. So just a really, really good way to go through. To get a quote sent over to you, you can go for send e-quote, and you would just enter either your email or the passenger's email in there, and then that could just provide a quote before you actually go ahead and book. Just to go over all of the features here on Polar Online as well, if your guest did hold any future cruise credits, you just go down here on FCCs, and any that they do have would be under display FCC, and it would pull through. Of course, there's none on here at the moment, so it won't show them, but it would show up in a block here, and it would give the option of which ones you want to choose and add on to the booking. Oh, so once I've confirmed with the guest that I'm all happy with the selection, what we'll do is save and continue through to the booking process. And this is where it gives me the options of my cabin. So as you can see here, there is actually a cabin option available where I can select the cabin number, or I do have some guarantee options. So if I just want to find out a little bit more about this cabin number here that I've been provided, if I click here, it will give me then a full breakdown and description of the cabin, any berth notes. So here, as you can see, as I mentioned about the obstructed view, you can see here it says the balcony part obstructed view. So if that's no good for your guests, then of course what we can do is always go back and look for other options in the cabin. If your guests are after an accessible cabin, you can search here. Just bear in mind that you would need to be familiar with cabins, with what grades of cabins the accessible cabins are in, because if you do search on a grade where it doesn't hold any accessible cabins, it won't actually allow you to pull any through. So you would need to be in a grade where accessible cabins are listed, and then you would be able to go through and it will pull through the accessible cabins as well for you. So we want to go ahead with this option here, and then we'll save and continue through. And then this is where it will let you go ahead and confirm your guest details as well. So you pop those all in. Again, already auto-populated if your guest has already entered in and provided you with their Captain Circle number. You'll be able to go ahead and do their bed configuration, so twin or queen. And then you can also add in here if you want to auto upgrade. So this is opting in for the complimentary upgrade scheme. So if your guest is really happy with the cabin that you selected, they're a bit kind of particular with where exactly they want to be located on the ship, I would always advise no to upgrade, just because once they're upgraded, it's automatically done. And it may be that the cabin originally that they were in has now been given to another guest. If your guests are happy to upgrade though, do keep them in the open to any upgrade. Open to the next stateroom type means that this would only upgrade them, say if they were booked in a mini, say a balcony, it would only then upgrade them to a mini suite rather than another meta within that category. TWID bookings, if they are traveling with another cabin, you can click the tick box here and that will create a new code. This wouldn't be the code, but once you go through and actually confirm the booking, it will provide you with a 3-letter code, whereby you can then provide that and add that into the next booking, so they are linked as well. It does mention dining here, but as you will know, dining has now moved over to our Medallion app, whereby guests can go ahead and pre-book and schedule in all of their dining preferences before the cruise. So that is kind of an overview of generally how you would go through a booking process with flights. What I will do as well, my next voyage that I will go through will actually be a Caribbean voyage, so that'll be a longer haul flight with looking at adding in any hotels. But before I do move on to that, does anyone have any questions about anything that I've just gone through? Appreciate I've just kind of spoken for the last 15 minutes at you all. No, cool. If at any point as well you do have questions, please do feel to put them in the chat. Abbie will monitor it, and if there is any that we can call out.
We have got one question. So for families, how would you add children?
So you would add children, you can just go ahead and add in the third and fourth guest. So for example, I've just based that on just based on a 2-guest cabin. But when you come to your initial sailing search here, you would then change your occupancy, of course, to the amount of guests in the cabin as well. So then it would only pull you through the availability based on cabins with availability to 3, 4, however many guests it is that are sailing in that cabin. We don't have any cabins that take any more than 5, and that would be in the Sky Suites.
And then one more question, how would they add a soda package for the children?
That can be added after the cruise, so that would be in managed booking. That can be added as what we call a special service in SSB. So that will be actually on the managed bookings. We do have, I won't go into managed booking today just because we won't be confirming any, but we do have a whole webinar on our YouTube as well, so we can definitely share the YouTube out for you, and it will show you exactly the what you can pop on there. The guests can do it on their cruise personalizer, or you can do it for them on managed booking.
Marcus asked, how far in advance can you book dining options on the Medallion app?
So dining options is when the final balance is paid and received by agents, isn't it? So they can go ahead and add that on. Or if the guest is elite status or they're booked in a suite, it can be done at the time of booking.
Right. Someone has asked, is the Princess Plus added for children too at the time of booking? So if you've got your 2 adults, then you've added your children and you select Plus, is that for the children or is that just the first 2?
So the way I just added it on there, if that was a cabin of 4 that I was searching, it would have added it on for all 4 guests. So what my best advice would be to go ahead and add it without. Create the booking without, but obviously quote your guests for it included for guests 1 and 2. It does have to be applied for a minimum of guests 1 and 2, and that's for both Princess Plus and Premier. But then what you could do is then hop onto the chat function and then request that our team add it on for just the guests 1 and 2. Unfortunately, Polar Online will automatically apply it for all guests within the cabin.
Amazing. And then one more question we've got is, if a passenger opts for the auto upgrade, do they have to take this if they're not happy with their new cabin type?
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah, they do.
So yeah, like Danny was saying, if you have got quite a particular guest who really wants it in a certain place, you know, a lot of people request to have midship, so there's less walking up and down, then definitely don't go with the auto upgrade option, because what we specify as an upgrade might not be what a guest specifies an upgrade. So they might have a bigger cabin, but that might then come with an obstructive view. So you need to kind of weigh it up of what exactly they're looking for and what they need from a cabin, and if that would be suitable to them.
Yeah, absolutely, because 9 times out of 10 their previous cabin would have already been assigned to someone else also on the upgrade scheme. Cool. Shall I move on and then we can come back to anything else?
We've got one more question from Mark, but I think I would know the answer. So who would be the accounts contact for invoice queries? Would you go through the customer contact centre for that?
Yeah.
So it's the dedicated island number that we have. Again, we can share that out when we send all of this, but just ring up the contact centre and they can help with that one.
Yeah, because sometimes there are invoice queries that do come through onto the academy, which we generally would then have to forward over again onto the reservations team, because they'll be pulling all of those through for you as well.
Right.
Cool. What I'll do is I'll go on to the Caribbean voyage that we're going to be looking at then. So voyage number is going to be 4534. So that's Star Princess. Again, yes to air, Dublin as my airport home city. And again, Star Princess, just to show you some of the really lovely itineraries that we go to. This is the itinerary that we've pulled out today. So Fort Lauderdale round trip, visiting Mexico. And as well here, it will always give an indication of how many formal nights are on board as well. So that gives good planning ahead for your guests as well as to how many dressy outfits they need for the cruise. Oh, okay, let's go through here then. So I won't go too much into the actual booking process like I just did, but what I will focus on in this voyage is adding on the overnight hotel stays. As you would have noticed as well, the departure port for the cruise is Fort Lauderdale. Generally, what we would then do would be look at flying the guests into Miami, because it is a really, really close departure from there. So what happens when you're booking a longer haul flight? We will always recommend that your guests fly out the day before. we know how flights go. Sometimes it could be any delays. When your guests do book air with Princess, they do have the Princess protection. So it does mean that we do have an en route team that would then automatically, the guests would just be able to call them, and we would look to rebook them onto the next available flight. We would still do our best to make sure that that guest gets to the ship in the instances where we can. So what happens is, what we would always then obviously do is look at adding on the hotel the night before. If you were to not add on the flight, then the hotel, sorry, the night before, when you do go onto your flight search, it will then bring you up probably the craziest of flights with layovers, etc., because it'll be trying to function how it can get the guests from Dublin to Fort Lauderdale as well, on that day of the cruise. So just to go on to add on the packages, as you see, it will always automatically pull through the transfers for you. So just down here in travel packages, it shows you here the airport to ship and ship to airport. So now what we want to do is see what hotels we have available. So we'll go into the package list. And let's hope we have some available. So we do here. So what we have is a full list of the hotels that we have. It will tell you if they are before or after the cruise, and it will show you if they're available. So Embassy Suites in Fort Lauderdale is generally the most popular, but that is closed. That one's sold out. So let's go for this one here. And then we would just add in, we would tick here. It will give you a bit more information on the hotel if you do press on that little search button there as well. Just a point to make is that all of our hotels that we offer are based on a room only basis. If the guests do want to add on any breakfast at all, they would then need to make contact with the hotels directly after their booking is made, and then that would be payable to the hotel directly. Unfortunately, there isn't an option to upgrade that. You can, of course, increase the nights of hotel as well. So here we just want one night before, though, in this instance, and we're going to add on this hotel in Fort Lauderdale Beach. And then I would submit. And then, as you can see here, that's then added on into my package. So I'll submit through. And then my package cost has there increased. So then what will happen when I then go on to plain sailing is, that's the old plain sailing, here we go, that will then automatically incorporate within the deviated dates for the overnight stay. So then that will give us the options. It probably will still look to try and fly me to Fort Lauderdale when I first open. So as you can see here, we've got some option here with Dublin to Chicago, then through to Fort Lauderdale, which is not what we want. We want a direct flight. So what we'll do here is go in to start a new search. And then we can simply just change it to Miami. That's what we want to do. If for whatever reason your guests were, there are so many options really, honestly, with plain sailing as well. So if your guests were doing their own kind of multi-centre and were doing their own hotels, say that we haven't just added that hotel, there is the option to kind of add in a stop. You can deviate it to up to 30 days before. So there is the flexibility to still have the flights with Princess and when your guests have their own arrangements. So there are so many options. But as we've just done that one night before, we can then just go here and that will arrive on the day before the cruise. So then it will bring you up your options. It gives you the recommended options here, and our guests don't want to stop on the way. So we're going to go for a direct flight. And again, of course, we've got a trusty Aer Lingus. So we'll then click the Aer Lingus flight. With all flexible airfares as well, the luggage will be included, but you can head to OneSource. There is a full flight checklist as well that has what airlines have what included. The majority of flexible airfares, though, will have that included. Okay, so on the way back in November, Miami doesn't seem to have a direct flight into Dublin. So for the sake of this, what we will do is just go for this flight to select that on. Our guests are all happy. We would then just go ahead and book now, as we did with the previous flights. There are instances where the hotels, where certain voyages might not have any hotel availability whatsoever. We do have a whole other webinar on that as well, in terms of booking operational overnights, etc. And there are guides on that as well, because sometimes there may just be no availability. And that's the case that we look at having to deviate the flights, or guests may need to make their own accommodation arrangements as well. Okay, is there any questions on adding hotels? Anything based on what I've just run through there?
Let's see if anyone types anything
through. And of course, if at any time any of you do have any instances where you're having troubles pulling through any hotels, then of course do reach out to myself or Abbie, because then we can always have a look into it. And it may tend to be where the hotels haven't been available and it's been on an out of date range selection or something like that. But we can always look into them on an individual basis.
Right, looks like we've got no questions for this one.
Lovely. Right, let's go ahead and just then cover off an out of date range voyage, just to show you how the flights were pulled through in that instance. So again, just a general selection. You're all going to be pros at this because now it's the third time running through. Let's select the guests here. And this may be actually some of you that are on this call may be like, Danielle, I absolutely already know how to do all of this, but sometimes it's just a really good refresher to run through. Or there's always things that you're finding out about Polar online. I mean, our internal Polar, there's always things that I'm finding out on a daily basis, and that's after a few years. So there's just always little bits that you don't realise, or shortcuts that actually sometimes can really, really help make the process and the booking process so much easier for you. So the voyage that we're going to go for here is X632. So that will be Discovery Princess, and we still want to ensure that we're selecting yes to air, and again our general search. And then we've got our lovely Alaska itinerary here. So we're going to be sailing from Vancouver back through to Vancouver. Actually, this is a full round trip.
Someone has just quickly asked, where would they find the voyage number?
So if you're searching the voyage, my best advice when you're looking for, if you've got a guest that's come in, they don't exactly know where they want to go, or you're just having a search for them, use the Princess website. It's so interactive. It's so useful, as you even just saw when we've kind of gone onto the deck plans and itinerary, when it brings it to life. The voyage, it will always have here. So if I open this up, when you are on just the website and you found a voyage, in kind of the search bar, it will always have the voyage number along the top there as well. So that is one way to find it. If it's a voyage that we've advertised, you've seen it on an offer card, sometimes you may find that we will include the voyage number on the offer card. As you can see here, it's pulled for voyage number here. But obviously from that first search function, you can search by just the ship and the date of departure as well, if that's all that you have. So there are lots of options, but yeah, a really good way to bring it to life just by searching actually through the website, especially with cruise tours. Really going off tangent there, but the cruise tours as well are a really great way to bring to life by actually using on the website before bringing it then onto Polar Online. Cool. So let's go for Discovery Princess. We'll go for a standard balcony. Save and continue. And then the only difference here, where they're out of date range, the flights generally come into date range about 330 days prior to the departure. The only difference is you just won't have this plain sailing button, but because there are no options of flights available. However, what you will have is an estimated airfare in the flights column here under air. Now, how that works is basically, because you've selected yes to air, when the flights are in date range, you will automatically receive an air notification to say that a set of flights have been applied to the booking. It might be flights that aren't suitable for your guests. And also, if you haven't added on the overnight hotel stay, it will actually do those crazy flights where it's trying to get the guest in on the day of the cruise. So if you do know that you want your flights to be allocated when they're in date range to go the day before, you just then need to make sure that you've got that hotel added for your guests, and then it will add based on having the hotel included as well. So we'll go for the trusty Western Bayshore, add that on, and then that would be then into your guest package, so that when the flights are released, it will do it the day before. Whilst it will do it the day before, it might not be the flights that your guest wants. It might be that the flights allocated are with an airline that your guest would prefer not to fly with. That's absolutely fine. You can absolutely change the flights once they are in date range, once you've got that notification. So you would then just go on to plain sailing, because then the option will be available to do so. And then you can make your selection. It may be that the flights actually are less. It may be that there are options that are more. However, you kind of won't, for the actual standard flight to get your guest there, you wouldn't ever have more than the estimated airfare that's provided. given, unless obviously your guest did want to upgrade and so on. In terms of the upgrades that can be done via plain sailing, we can do different classes of flights. So you could go from economy, premium economy, business, first class. However, if your guests are wanting to book specific seats, such as like extra leg room, exit row seats, they then actually need to do that with the airline directly once the flights are booked, along with actually adding on any extra luggage as well. That would need to be done. However, airport assistance can be requested through Polar Online, but it does then also need to be requested with the airline as well.
Someone has just asked a question that if a client's not happy with the flights offered, can they then remove the flights from the booking?
Yeah, of course. When they're added on out of date range, it will add them as a flexible airfare. So it means that they can be removed, and you could just decide just to remove those off the booking at any time. Or if the guest actually decides halfway through, even when you've got the estimated airfare, we can still just remove that estimated airfare before the flights are even allocated on there as well.
Great, thank you.
No problem. Well, that's all the voyages that we were going to run through. Hopefully that kind of gave a good overview of the different types of cruise searches that you may do. Of course, there are so many more, as I mentioned, even cruise tours and so on. So we do have so many guides for them on our YouTube channel. But yeah, of course, if there is any feedback or any other kind of processes that you would want us to run through, do let us know, because then we can make sure that we jump on and do extra webinars, or we can ensure that we do have pre-recorded sessions, or it may even be that we already have the training tools available to support you. We can just then direct you exactly where to find those.